Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our wonderful Wednesday live stream for Week 11 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the course of the next hour, we're talking all things fantasy football, and of course, answering your guys' questions, whether it is post waiver wire from yesterday, if there was any valuable players dropped. Who are they? Can we add them to your roster? And can they help us win in the future? Or potentially looking for trades for those of you who are in a win now situation, looking for players that can, of course, help you now, while, of course, trying to pivot off of players that either are facing a bye week this week or in week 12 or 14. David Ramos, what's up? How's it going, brother? I see Rogo in the chat. Eric, how's it going? Luis? Many familiar names. I hope you guys are all doing well on this Wednesday. Earlier today, I did drop my wide receiver rankings video for this week. If you guys haven't checked it out, do me a favor, check that out. Click the like button on it. And of course, while you're still here via this live stream, click the like button down below. It is greatly appreciated. Again, before I get into answering questions, which is the entire purpose of today's live stream, trying to help you guys out to the best of my ability for week 11 in order to get us on the right path to, of course, not only making the fantasy playoffs, but hopefully making a run at the chip. Again, make sure you guys include your scoring format and all the context necessary within your questions. If you're asking a trade question, include your scoring format, but not only that, how many teams are in your league, what your win-loss record is, and that would be very much so important. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be for not only myself to answer your questions, but of course, other members of this community who are highly experienced within fantasy football. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Before we get into talking about these questions that, of course, you guys will be sending in my direction. What does that say? Flacco over Purdy? Yeah, absolutely. I'd much rather play Flacco over Purdy. It's not even remotely close in that circumstance. Even if Purdy's healthy this week, I think there's a couple different, even if he does end up playing this week, I feel like the matchup for Flacco against Pittsburgh, considering how many weeks ago it was and how much domination they, put forth in that matchup, it just, yeah, that's the clear and away. Lockett over Austin? Yes, I'd rather play Tyler Lockett over Calvin Austin this week. Appreciate it. All right. Mr. 199 here. Hi, guys. Dirt Road, did you end up getting that refund, brother? Hopefully you did. I really hope you did, man. Please tell me if you didn't, because if not, I'll send an email if I need to. All right, guys. Anyway, like I was going to say, if you guys want my all-encompassing rankings every single Sunday morning, do not forget that this upcoming Sunday morning, there is another game in Europe. It is a Madrid game between Washington Commanders taking on the Miami Dolphins. So we'll be here this upcoming Sunday morning, bright and early. Of course, answering questions, as you guys all know. But if you guys want to go ahead, what the heck is this? Okay, anyway, if you guys want to know and get my rankings, of course, you can go ahead, sign up using Betr, using code Andrew. Making that first time deposit, making that first time play. Otherwise, you can check out the Patreon. Greatly appreciate it. We're good to go. Okay, let's get into this overall situation here. I want to actually check this out before we continue. Good to go. Yeah, all right. That's fine. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go here. All right, here we go. First question of the day belongs to the one and only Johnny Kilroy, who began yesterday's live stream with a couple questions, and now we begin with Chargers or Chiefs defense. Between the two of them, I prefer to pick up and play the Chargers defense this week. Guys, again, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, without BTJ, without Travis Hunter, we don't know what the status of Brenton Strange is going into this week. Just ultimately the offense as a whole. Trevor Lawrence is not a competent enough quarterback to be able to trust and be able to kind of fire up, him and any of those pieces confidently. The Chargers defense as of late has really turned a corner. The last 3 weeks allowing 14 or fewer points to opposing offenses. The less they score, the more they score, the more pass rushing opportunities, the more turnovers that there will be racked up in the second half. The Chargers are my preference between those two defenses this week. Johnny, thank you. Chico Man 831 says it a question, says salute. Pick one in a non-PPR scoring format. Wan'Dale Robinson, Hunt, Watson, Tucker. Okay, so of these available options, again, you got a lot of great ones. Wan'Dale Robinson in a non-PPR is a little bit sketchy in my mind. I don't want to play Christian Watson or Trey Tucker in this circumstance because, again, I do think, yes, there's an advantageous matchup here against Dallas, but very sketchy. Advantageous matchup against the Giants, but very sketchy. In the event in which there is no Kareem Hunt, if there is no Pacheco this week, which he did not practice earlier today, I am more in line to probably play Kareem Hunt in this circumstance because of the non-PPR format as it stands. In the event in which I could guarantee Wan'Dale Robinson, Christian Watson or Trey Tucker find themselves in the end zone, I'd 100% suggest that. But in a non-PPR, I think Kareem Hunt is the correct play in this circumstance. Thank you. Justin says, on a 12-team full PPR, my record is 6-4. We've got Mahomes, JT, Genty, Ladd, Marvin Harrison, which again is going to be out not only this week, but hopefully just only this week. But again, there's a likelihood that he could miss multiple weeks with an appendectomy. Of course, he had a procedure earlier today with his appendix exploding, in which he needed to get that removed. So if there's a possibility in which he misses multiple weeks, that could really hurt our fantasy chances, considering he was on a streak of finally getting actual opportunity. The last 2 weeks is the first time in Marvin Harrison's career where he has had double-digit targets in back-to-back games. Just putting that into perspective, the reality of the situation. He was on his way to potentially being fantasy relevant at a higher capacity than he has ever been. And unfortunately has to have this injury, which, I mean, I guess it's not an injury, it's a life situation. But in this circumstance, you have Laporta, Derrick Henry, Flowers on the bench. Thoughts for trades? I mean, obviously, Marvin Harrison might be someone that I'm considering moving, primarily because you can't afford to keep him on roster if he's going to miss any sort of semblance of time here. Outside of that, I think Mahomes, again, is a top-tier option. JT and Genty are fantastic. Ladd's great. Laporta's great. Henry's great. In the event in which, again, you were looking for an alternative option, it would probably be in the form of trying to move Marvin Harrison in order to bring somebody in return to kind of give you a better chance to kind of continue to rack up wins here in this circumstance. If you were to tell me that Marvin Harrison is only going to miss 1 week and he's going to be back by next week, then I'd probably hold him because I think Flowers can do justice instead of him on this overall position, unless you're playing in a double flex format. If you are in a double flex format and you don't have anybody that will fill in, I mean, I guess you can go pick up Michael Wilson in the meanwhile. Otherwise, I think this is a playoff ready team, genuinely. Looking at the players you have and the roster that's kind of going to deliver for the fantasy playoffs, I'm very happy with how it's structured. I don't love the idea of Mahomes taking on Denver in the fantasy playoffs, but then again, not everyone's going to have the most pretty matchups in these circumstances, but I think that the structure as a whole is solid enough to where I don't need to make any crazy adjustments. What I will suggest to the majority of you who have a 6-4 or 73 record, go to the teams in your league who are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. 4-6, 3-7, and are trying to make the playoffs as a final seed in your league and need to win out, and try to take the players off of their team that are either injured and or potentially on an upcoming bye. For example, if someone in your league has Bucky Irving, I'm trading for him right now, especially considering he participated in practice today. Yes, it was a walkthrough, but his participation alone gives me the indication he'll be back, if not this week, next week at the latest. And at that point, that's someone I want to have on roster in this circumstance going forward. So that's something that you could explore, Justin, if someone in your league cannot afford for Bucky Irving to miss this week. Thank you. Eric M sends in a question. Eric, thank you very much. Says, in a PPR, do I start Charbonnet or pick up Hunt and drop Tez Johnson? I think it just depends on a couple factors. Like, Tez Johnson's value is still going to be very much so relevant as we go forward, even in the event in which Chris Godwin does return. I know Chris Godwin was limited in his participation today. Again, they had a walkthrough, and he'll probably end up practicing this upcoming week and may end up playing. But in regards to the potential of both of these running backs as it currently stands, I would prefer to pick up and play Hunt this week over Charbonnet. I think there's a little bit more of a stability and also a little bit more safety within the play, especially if Pacheco is going to miss. If that does require you to drop Tez Johnson, I think it just becomes a matter of, like, can you afford to do so? Do you need the wide receiver depth? Is potentially dropping him going to hurt you more than it helps you? If the answer is yes, that it's going to hurt you more than it helps you, then you just stick with Charbonnet and keep it rolling and hope he falls into the end zone. Otherwise, I do prefer Kareem Hunt this week. Thank you. Adam C, what's up? Says Flacco or Love this week. I'd prefer to play Flacco. Again, Jordan Love taking on Jameis Winston, and that game should be exciting, and Jameis Winston could end up genuinely making a lot of noise this week. For those of you guys who I specifically yesterday told to pick up Jacoby Brissett, now that Marvin Harrison is missing this week, I'm pivoting to Jameis Winston. Like, genuinely, I'm pivoting 100%. But in your circumstance here, Adam, I'm 100% going to play Joe Flacco. Thank you. Carson Hughes, what's up, Carson? Says, in a full PPR, AJ, Bree, or Zay for the flex. You know what's crazy? I don't know if you guys saw the video, but I saw it earlier today where AJ Brown was playing Madden with somebody. I think it was, yesterday? And they were asking, and he asked him, like, oh, you're against Detroit this week, you're probably going to go for 200. And then all of a sudden, AJ Brown, without any sort of, just freely says, if you guys have me in fantasy, get rid of me. Now, I don't know if that's him trying to just tell anybody who has him in fantasy to stop complaining about his production, because I'm sure there's a couple bad apples out there that get after him in the DMs. But in regards to his production, I would hope he's going to bounce back. But hearing that kind of stuff scares me, because we've already heard A.J. Brown complaining all season long because of the lack of utilization within the offense and the fact that possibly could be something that continues scares me. As of right now, if Rashad Bateman is out in a full PPR, I could consider Zay. I want to play AJ Brown though, but now I'm beginning to get scared in doing so. So I might just end up pivoting to Zay there. Trollin 83 says in a half PPR, Calvin Austin or Tyler Lockett. I would prefer to play Tyler Lockett. He was the primary slot receiving option of the offense. He already has a very built-in rapport with the likes of Geno Smith within this scheme. And if it's going to be a higher scoring game, I would assume that Tyler Lockett gets a lot of love against that secondary that has struggled mightily over the course of the season. In comparison to, of course, if we remember the last time out between the Cincinnati Bengals and Pittsburgh Steelers, the tight end position was 100% glorified. They were running 3 tight end sets for majority of that game. I would assume that, of course, Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf take a bit of a back seat in this matchup against Cincy this week. Lockett's my suggestion there. Thank you. Fantasy Forecast says, injuries have ruined my roster. I've got Herbert and Caleb. Okay. So quarterback still alive, good to go. Bucky, Benson, White, Henderson, Harvey, Javonte. Honestly, I think you're okay. Hold up, wait. I think you're still looking good here. If Bucky plays, you have Hendo on Thursday. I mean, again, Dobbins missed practice, so Harvey could be elevated to being the starter. Javonte's still going to be at a top 10 capacity. I'm not seeing any problems yet. London, Amon-Ra, AJB. Excuse me. I still see no problems because you have 2 top 5 wide receivers this week, okay? Then you have Gadsden Ferguson. Gadsden practiced today at a limited capacity, so he's not even injured. It says, I had a trade wide receiver depth for running backs like Hendo for Marvin Harrison because injury moves question mark. Brother, I think your team looks fantastic. I have no complaints at all, and I really don't need you. I don't think you need to move anything. Like, if you want to make trades, you certainly can, but I don't think there's a necessity to have to do exactly that. I think the roster you have constructed with the quarterback, I mean, just across the board, I'm not even just going to highlight quarterback. Every single position of the primary 4 is looking great. I have no complaints. You have no significant bye weeks upcoming that is going to disastrously kind of light up your team. Sure, you have a Harvey and a Hendo bye week in week 12 and additionally in week 14, but you have enough depth to be able to justify what you're currently rolling with. I'm not making any moves. If I'm you, I keep it rolling with the roster you've got on hand here. Thank you, Fantasy. Bob, what's up? Bob sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate it. Says in a full PPR, 2 tight ends, Taylor, Fannin, Schultz, Theo Johnson, or Cade Otton. As of this week, I'm going to lean towards Schultz and Theo Johnson as the 1-2 combo. Schultz has been playing out of his mind as of late. I mentioned it on the waiver wire episode on Monday. He has been at an all-time level in terms of utilization of targets, whether it's been Davis Mills and or CJ Stroud. So Dalton Schultz is going to be the auto there. In regards to Theo Johnson, I was a little bit skeptical on his usage if Russell Wilson was going to start, but considering earlier today, the New York Giants organization did in fact confirm that Jameis Winston's going to be starting. I feel like Theo Johnson, based on just the utilization and the uptick of production we saw from David Njoku last year from weeks 8 through 15, I think Theo Johnson's going to be an absolute stud going forward, even in the absence of Jackson Dart. These are my 2 preferred for this week. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Avram, what's up? Says in an 8-team league, half PPR, I'm 6-4 with Gibbs and Adams. 6-4, period. Okay. Gibbs and Adams for ETN or JSN. For ETN, I'm going to assume that you meant, instead of or, you probably mean and JSN. Half PPR rest of season. Okay, in terms of rest of season purposes, I would prefer to have the Gibbs and Adams side, genuinely. I think that is the preferred in a half PPR scoring format. Adams is continuing to score touchdowns every single week. It looks like Matthew Stafford is going to try to break his career high of 41 touchdowns in a regular season. Jahmyr Gibbs continues to ball out. In a half PPR, of course, the touchdowns are ever so vital, and both these players at this moment are very much so implicated for a high volume of them. So that's the direction I would lean in. I don't think this is an unfair trade. I think if Adams' oblique injury was to play a factor in the future, you could consider the ETN and JSN side to be safer. But as it currently stands, I would prefer to have Gibbs and Adams going forward here. It says, if not, should I ask for Kyren Williams instead of ETN? Even asking for Kyren Williams instead of ETN, I think it does make it a little bit of a sweeter deal. To which, again, if you would like to make that trade, I don't think it's an unfair trade. I think it's relatively balanced across the board. But I would still go as far as to saying I would prefer to have Adams and Gibbs going forward. Adams, in my mind, is a top 10 wide receiver rest season. Gibbs, in my mind, is a top 5, if not top 6 running back rest season. To which you pretty much have the same on the opposite side, where like JSN's a top 5 wide receiver and Kyron Williams a top 12 running back, right? So actually, no, I would be a little bit more generous. JSN is top 2 wide receiver rest season, if not top 3. And Kyron's more like top 12. So ultimately, I think that's still a balanced trade. If you want to go ahead and go with the Kyron and JSN side, I would prefer that over ETN. But ultimately, I'm going to suggest you probably keep Gibbs and Adams going forward here. Appreciate it. Akuma187 sends in a question. Akuma, thank you. Says, sup, Drew, in a 10-team PPR. Dart is out. Do I start Brissett with no Marvin Harrison or pick up Flacco? 100% pick up Flacco. It's not even remotely close. If I knew that Flacco was available in your league, I wouldn't have even told you to pick up Brissett. I would have told you to just go with Flacco. But looking at the rostership percentages from Flacco on Monday, I didn't even mean to even... I looked at it, I saw, oh man, he's rostered in 60+% of sleeper leagues. There's no point of even suggesting him because that's the vast majority of leagues that are still paying attention. So as of right now, Flacco is the much preferred quarterback between the two, and it's not even remotely close. It says also, with PJ hurt, start Tez instead. Who the heck is PJ? Am I losing my mind? Also, who's the Cardinals wide receiver to pick up? It's Michael Wilson Jr. I don't know who PJ is. I'm going to be 100% frank with you. I've looked at P and I was like, Parker, but that's not a W. Is the W near a J on a keyboard? Not even close, brother. I don't know what the heck P... I've lost it. Maybe I got to go to the live chat. Someone can tell me who PJ is. Because genuinely, I might be cooked, guys. Parker guy? Yeah, but Parker Washington's not PJ. I don't know who the heck... Drake May or Lamar Jackson? You know, it depends. I mean, Lamar Jackson technically missed Parker. Okay, so it is Parker Washington. Okay, all right. Let's see. What does it say? It says Lamar Jackson or Drake May. In regards to Lamar Jackson versus Drake May, Lamar did miss practice earlier today. So there is a possibility in which you never know. But under the assumption that he is available, I'm starting him. I don't see a way in which I never start him because he just really has the ultimate upside across the board in my mind. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Where are we at? So yeah, when you say Parker, that doesn't even make sense. Is Parker? I think Parker Washington's not hurt. I know he's questionable because he probably was limited, if not missed practice today. I'm not worried about it. But either way, I do prefer Tez Johnson over him. Thank you. All right, after Akuma, we have Dog Pound, who says, start 1 running back and 2 flex. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Let's see what you have here, brother. Says, I have Henderson, Dowdle, Warren, Diggs, Jones, Benson, Pearsall, Walker, and May, or Hurts. I'm going to play Drake May there, very, very simply. I think he's the better of the two. In regards to the running back conversation, of these available options and available technical wide receivers here, I think it is in your best interest to start all 3 running backs. Henderson, Dowdle, and Warren should all be started this week. They are the best of the bunch. Thank you. I'm Gucci Upolo, sends it a question. Says, I'm 6-4 in a full PPR. Start 1 wide receiver, Sutton, Tez, Parker Washington, or Ricky Pearsall if he's good to go. Even if Ricky Pearsall's good to go, I would assume that he's going to be at a limited capacity. I wouldn't anticipate them to give him a full workload of opportunity in terms of snap counts, nor target opportunity itself. So Ricky's someone that, yes, if he ends up playing this week, it's a positive, but I think that's something to reevaluate next week as a startable option rather than this week as it stands. Says, okay, so if I was going to start one of these wide receivers, technically speaking, I'm probably going to go in the direction of Tez. Yeah, Tez Johnson would be the situation here. Says, do I start 2 of these receivers over Rachaad White at the flex? Well, under the assumption that Bucky Irving does end up playing, then yes, you would start 2 wide receivers instead of playing Rachaad White because he would be at a limited role in comparison. So, yeah, in the event in which you have an opportunity in which Parker Washington, Tez Johnson are your 1-2 combo there, and Bucky Irving is returning, I would go in that direction. It says also Caleb or Bo Nix. I'd prefer to play Caleb Williams this week. Thank you. All right, moving on to Luke C. Luke, thank you. Says, I've got Bigsby, no Saquon, worth dropping for Batty. I mean, is he going to play that much over Harvey? I doubt it. I don't think it's worth it ultimately. I'd rather have an actual big fish kind of handcuff available just in case. I don't think that this is worth it in any sort of capacity. Thank you. Alejo says, in a full PPR, playoffs almost guaranteed. Just traded BTJ for Garrett Wilson. Thoughts? I think that's honestly just fine. I don't really trust Garrett Wilson's health for the remainder of the season, but I don't really trust BTJ's utilization within that offense anyway. So trading an injured player for an injured player, it is what it is. Let's just hope that Garrett Wilson, once he does end up getting healthy, it's sooner rather than later, because I did hear the timeline's anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks, which is going to be far more of a longer potential return period than BTJ. And by the time that Garrett Wilson is eligible to return, there is a potential likelihood in which they say, you know what? You don't need to play this year. We don't need you having to have rehab in the offseason. Don't play. That's what I can legitimately end up potentially seeing here. So we'll have to wait and see there, Alejo. Thank you. Lock Screen Gaming, what's up? Pick 5 of the 6 to start. Lamb, Jefferson, London, Javonte Williams, Genty, and Bucky. I mean, just to be safe, I probably just play all of your studs and I just wait on Bucky. If you wanted to take a little bit of a risk regarding Bucky Irving, you theoretically could. But, I mean, he would have to get 2 full participations of practice tomorrow and Friday for me to feel the most comfortable. At least if he gets a full participation of practice by Friday, going up against the Bills, I would go as far to say, like, if this is a half PPR scoring format, I would play London, Lamb, Javonte, Genty, and Bucky, and I would sit Jefferson at that point. But if it's a full PPR and he doesn't get that full participation of practice by Friday, I probably have him as the odd man out in this circumstance. Thank you. Adam Amar, what's up? Says I'm 7 to 3.5 PPR. May and Diggs for Buka or Nico. I have Baker. May and Diggs for Buka or Nico. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy making this trade. Again, I don't love the idea of, trading away Drake May, considering how great he has been over the course of the season. But the idea of being able to kind of keep Baker Mayfield, who doesn't have an upcoming bye week ahead, at 7 to 3, you're already pretty much guaranteed to make the playoffs. But at least reassuring your wide receiver position with either of the 2 available options here, I'd be very comfortable making this trade for Emeka Egbuka. Thank you. Avram sends in a question. Says, I just traded Ferguson, Prescott, Pittman, and Jalen Warren for Amon-Ra, Kyren Williams, and Mahomes. Thoughts? I mean, as of right now, assuming you have the tight end depth to be able to justify this trade, I think it's a absolute win in your column. Amon-Ra has more value than Pittman. Kyren has more value than Jalen Warren. Mahomes has more value than Prescott. So basically, it's just a matter of, can you afford to lose Ferguson, to which in your circumstance, if you do have the tight end depth to be able to afford doing such a trade. Let's see here. What did you have on roster in terms of potential tight ends? I don't know who you have on roster as it stands, but I think it's worth the trade already. Even if I have to go start streaming tight end, I'm okay with it. Fantasy Forecast says, I just completed a trade. My AJ Brown and Judkins for CeeDee Lamb. Thoughts? I'm okay with the trade. I mean, based on the fact that AJ Brown is already starting to crash out himself, and the fact that CeeDee Lamb is just going to give you stability on the position, I know that it could potentially, like, if the tides turn and AJ Brown goes back to being his 15 points per week, as he has done in each of the last 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, actually the last 3 seasons, since 2022, he has been 15 fantasy points per game on average in a half PPR. If he goes back to that, then obviously it's going to feel like absolute, it's going to feel like the world is ending. But in this circumstance, I don't know if we're going to get back to that position on a weekly basis, to which I'm okay bringing in the CeeDee Lamb haul in this circumstance. Thank you. Blue Medical Tent. What a name, brother. That is one of the best names I've seen. Says bye-week filler, full PPR, Musgrave or Freiermuth. It's 100% going to be Pat Freiermuth. I had a dream last night that Pat Freiermuth scored a touchdown. The last time, guys, I had a dream about a player scoring a touchdown, it was Josh Downs, and he in fact did it. So just putting it out there, Freiermuth's the guy. Appreciate it. Kev, what's up? Kev11 sends in a question. Says, what's up, Andrew? I'm 4-6 in a 12-man full PPR league. I got Drake May, Bo Nix, Gibbs, Henderson, Sean Tucker, Egbuka, Rice, Freiermuth, Dobbins, Sutton, Pierce, Warren, Washington. Who do I move to upgrade my RB2 for the playoff run? Well, the whole current situation here is that you can't afford to move Gibbs or Henderson. They should both be on roster. So the only kind of pieces you could theoretically move on roster right now is like Dobbins, Sutton, Pierce, Tyler Warren, Parker Washington. Actually, no, you're not moving Tyler Warren because that's your tight end and he's on a bye. That's why he's sitting there. Apologies. So really, it's just Dobbins, Sutton, Pierce, Parker Washington. To which, as of this current moment, I think Pierce and Parker Washington could haul some potential interest from teams, considering their contributions as of late. But that would be the only kind of like pieces that I believe on your roster are gonna, kind of apply some attention in their direction. Otherwise, Sutton has been, a little bit lackluster, as I like to say, at the very least. Unless somebody has had Sutton in the past and know what his value is, it's going to be difficult to move him. So potentially moving Pierce or Parker Washington in order to get some running back depth could be of value for you in the future here. To which, again, you may be able to go out there and make some moves. As to who you're going to get in return, it's very much so dependent on what teams in your league are in need of wide receiver, right? And in which teams in your league who are in need of wide receiver also subsequently have extra additional RB depth to make a move. Otherwise, I don't want to move Gibbs, Henderson, Ibuka, Rice, or Warren, or May. So basically use all your ancillary pieces to try to make a trade for a running back in this circumstance. Thank you. If I was going to suggest a name at running back, at this point, if you could somehow go get Jaylen Warren, genuinely, do it now before it's too late. When I say too late, it's before he takes on Cincinnati this week. Thank you. LZ, what's up? Says, what's up, Andrew? I'm in a full PPR double flex format, 5 and 5. We have Baker, Judkins, Harvey, Jamar, JSN, Loveland, Vidal, Tez Johnson. Bench consisting of Bucky Irving, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Wilson, Dobbins, Dart, Omarion Hampton, and Manungai. Thinking of trading JSN or Jamar for more depth. Thoughts? I mean, as of right now, I don't think there's a necessity to have to make this kind of a trade. If you are playing in a double flex format. So once, in fact, Vidal does kind of wash away, you will have Omarion Hampton, which I'm not too worried about. You have Bucky Irving, who may, in fact, end up playing this week. And then you have the handcuff of Harvey, Dobbins. You're good to go there. I mean, honestly, if I'm in your position, I think I'm comfortable holding unless you can find a deal out there to which you cannot say no to. Again, like I just suggested to Kev here, if someone's going to hand off, potentially Jaylen Warren, that's who I'm going after at RB very happily prior to this upcoming matchup ahead, to which I could very easily plug him in as my flex every single week for the remainder of the season in this kind of a format. But in the event in which you can go and buy low on, I'm going to say some available options such as Jordan Addison, Wan'Dale Robinson, that's something that I'm very much so interested for a flex play, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny considering, again, you're going to probably have to, ship off a Sutton or maybe even more from your bench. I don't feel like I need to move Jamar or JSN because both of them in a full PPR are going to give me 20 plus every week. And unless you're going to get two players that are going to combine for 30 plus every week, I'm not going in that direction. Thank you. Emily Doyle sends in a question, says, thoughts on Malik Washington rest of the season? Not too interested. Again, I really do love the upcoming schedule for the Miami Dolphins. In terms of all intensive purposes for fantasy points per game allowed, all four primary positions, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end, have incredible schedules ahead for rest of season purposes. But unfortunately, Parker Washington's availability in terms of targets is not relevant enough to keep him at a fantasy capacity to where he needs to be rostered, Emily. Thank you. Rogo says, sup, bro? Cut Corum / Musgrave. Added Tua Peterson, I guess. Or maybe that's Patterson. I don't know who that would be. Miami, 3-7, 12-team half PPR. We have McCarthy, McConkey, Adunze, Gibbs, Marks, Kittle, and Dobbs. I mean, look, the roster in itself is great. If I was in your position, though, I may be very highly considering going to try to pick up Jameis Winston and play him over JJ McCarthy, genuinely. If Flacco is out there, that should have already been rostered and you're going in that direction. If none of these options are potentially available, I think, again, McConkey, Adunze, Gibbs, Marks, Kittle, and then I probably end up playing Swift in my flex position over Dobbs. That's the direction I go in for this week, and I'll try to rack in a win here. Thank you. Mike 1981 says, in a standard scoring format, thank you very much, Mike, I greatly appreciate it. Says, in a standard scoring format, start 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 1 tight end. My RB is JT, Dobbins, Charbonnet, Rodriguez, Tucker. Okay, so you've got 1 running back, pretty much. Everybody else is either injured or a backup. I guess Charbonnet can suffice for now in a standard scoring format, considering the volume of touchdowns he scores for the last 6 games. Wide receivers are Puka, Lamb, Rice, Kittle. Trade offered me Charbonnet, Rice, Kittle for Bucky, Johnston, and Theo Johnson. No, thank you. Not even close. It's not even worth it. I would keep your roster as is, genuinely. I think having Puka, Rice, and Lamb as my 3 wide receivers and Kittle as my tight end with no flex on your team, you're just starting 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 1 tight end, no flex option. I am very much so comfortable rolling the team as you currently have it. These kind of trades in which you're getting a Johnston and a Theo Johnson are very much so not worth it in any sort of capacity. I'm keeping what I have and keeping it rolling. Thank you. Chung Bull says, in a 4-6 full PPR, team is in the chat. I have JD5, Brissett, Hall, Kamara, K9, Spears, Jordan Mason, Amon-Ra, Tedero McMillan, Olave, Dobbs, Xavier Worthy, and Tyler Warren. What trade do I try to make? I mean, purely it's just a matter of like, can quarterback hold up in the meanwhile? I also think that your running back position is an absolute shambles. So if I was in your position, depending on, let's see, you're 4-6, you said? I mean, unless you can genuinely afford to somehow win this week with the roster you have right now, I don't think you're going to be able to. With Tyler Warren, Chris Olave, and Kamara out on bye, with Hall with the toughest running back matchup of the week, with Tedero McMillan getting very, very little utilization, and with Jacoby Brissett now losing Marvin Harrison, unless you completely, I'm not even fucking around here, unless you completely ship away your whole roster or flip your lineup 100%, I'm talking about trade every single piece for a new player. Unless you do that, I think you're losing this week. Because nothing about this roster tells me that you can win. Genuinely nothing. With all the bye weeks you have in the matchups, in the injuries, unfortunately, it's a really tough spot to be in. Like, I think you can survive with Amon-Ra and Dobbs at wide receiver. But then we have Hall and K9 at RB, which is just a complete crapshoot. Then we have no tight end and no quarterback because I can't trust Brissett without Marvin Harrison out there. So for now, got to flip the whole roster. Any trade that you can make should be made. Tyler Warren should be traded for a tight end. Olave should be traded for a wide receiver. Kamara should be traded for a running back. Or maybe, in fact, Olave and Kamara, a 2-for-1 for a running back, in order to give me a little bit more depth in this circumstance. Again, I would go to the running back video I posted earlier this week, go after players who have incredible matchups and no bye weeks ahead, because at a 4-6 record, unless you're okay taking the L this week, which you could be, maybe you are. If you are okay taking the L, take the L, push it to next week, and let's try to win week 12, 13, and 14, 3 in a row, in order to finish off with a 7-7 record if you think that can get you into the playoffs. Thank you. Brian Colorado says, thanks, Andrew. Questions in the chat. Brian, thank you. Says, I'm 4-6 in a full PPR super flex with Dak, Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones. RBs are Achane, Brees, Kenneth Walker. Wide receivers are Nico, Tet, Quentin Johnson, Shakir, Bowers, Ferguson, Jawan Jennings at tight end. Any moves I can make? What players can I package? And what players should I target? Well, look, again, targeting players in your league is 100% going to be dependent on who in your league is actually willing to trade, guys. Like, even if I tell you, hey, you should be going and trading for the likes, like, you should be moving off of both Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker at this moment. If I can send both of them and get Jalen Warren, I'd be very comfortable doing so. If I could trade both of them for ETN, I'd be comfortable doing so. But it doesn't mean that either of those players are even available in your league to be traded for, because those teams may be comfortable with what they have. So I would say you need to upgrade at RB2, because especially with the upcoming bye week to HN with a 4-6 record, you're going to need to have players that I think that you at least can objectively trust within week 12 to kind of start as your RB1 and 2 in this circumstance. So maybe not sending away both, but potentially just sending away Brees Hall in order to capture a potential trade in this circumstance should be the immediate look. Outside of that, you don't need to have Bowers and Ferguson unless you're going to start them both every single week, which based on this current roster, you could theoretically, but then at that point, it's just a matter of like, what do we do with Jawan Johnson? Can we trade him? Can we make a move? Is there a possibility in which you take a Jawan Johnson and a Shakir and go and try to upgrade a wide receiver? Is there a possibility there in which you can go and buy low on a potential prospect? If someone in your league is like super tight and needy, maybe has Tyler. Well, actually, Jawan Johnson's on a bye, but you can't even move him. So maybe it is a move to where you're getting rid of Ferguson, but even then you can't really afford to do so based on what the roster currently consists of. Because technically you're going to start like Nico and Quentin Johnson as wide receiver 1 and 2, 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs. Can't really afford to lose anything here. Yeah, Ferguson's probably going to end up being your flex next to Shakir as like a toss-up for this week. Probably Shakir takes the cake there. So Ferguson could be traded with a running back in order to try to upgrade RB. That's a possibility. Thank you. Johnny Kilroy says, if Lamar doesn't play, do I then go with the Browns defense? No, I wouldn't even play the Browns defense at that point. I think Tyler Huntley's a good enough quarterback in that offense and demonstrated against the Chicago Bears that we can't even trust any defense against Huntley because he knows how to function that offense at a high level because he's done for years. Thank you. Kaiser says, congrats on surviving another year. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Says, how do we feel about Saquon? Not great. I mean, again, his fantasy playoff schedule is incredible, but I don't feel great about the offense as a whole. I really do hope that they fire their OC, genuinely. Usually I don't want to hope on the downfall of a potential human because he is a human, but when we're talking about the aspect of Saquon Barkley and the fantasy value that he presents, it has been, siphoned away because of the offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore really did give this offense life last season, in which now Patullo has just completely sapped all of it away and is unfortunately making all of these pieces outside of Devontae Smith just really tough to trust. I don't know how I feel about having all the Cowboys as my RB2 and my flex. Mahomes, Tracy, Javonte, Judkins, ETN, Sutton, Higgins, Ricky Pearsall, BTJ, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, and Pitts. I mean, again, at 4 and 6, I think you're in a really solid position with this roster to where you could go make some 2-for-1s. But considering you're playing in a double flex format, I keep it as is. Like, I want to start Javonte Williams and ETN as my RBs, and CeeDee Lamb alongside of T. Higgins as my wide receivers, Pickens as one of my other flex options, and then probably next to Judkins. I would keep it as is. I don't think you need to go and make moves. Keep this roster, keep it rolling. If you wanted to theoretically make a move for a Saquon, you theoretically could. It's just a matter of how much you have to give up in order to accomplish that. If someone willing to take Tracy and Judkins off your hands, or maybe Javonte and Tracy, I'm willing to make that kind of a potential move if potentially available. Thank you. Drew sends in a question. Says, if Bucky plays, are we concerned about his workload? It depends on his practice participation on Friday. If he gets a full participation of practice by Friday, I wouldn't be concerned about it. I would assume that he's going to be at a full workload. But if he's limited up until Friday, but ends up being active, then at that point, I would be worried about his workload. But I would still be willing to start him primarily because they take on the Bills. Not like to the level where he's a top 12 running back, but at a top 30 capacity, would still be willing to roll in his direction. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Christopher Garza says, would of you trade A.J. Brown for Walker and Keenan Allen? I probably wouldn't. I just don't know the value which Keenan Allen really presents. Kenneth Walker doesn't score tutties. I'd probably just hold on to A.J. Brown and sink with the ship. Thank you. Luis Garcia says, I offered Josh Allen for Woody Marks and A.J. Brown. Should I take it? My team is Caleb Williams, Woody Marks, Dowdle, Chase, J.J., Gadsden, A.J. Brown, Harvey, Henderson, Chase Brown, McMillan, Sutton, Pearsall. So you're telling me you would have Dowdle and Chase Brown and Henderson as your 3 RBs going forward. And then additionally on top of it, your wide receivers would consist of Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Cortland Sutton, Tedero, McMillan, Pearsall. And then you would be able to replace your quarterback. I would be willing to take this trade. That's fine by me. Again, are you giving up a lot? Yes, I think objectively you are. But if you're playing in a league where you can only start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex, I think you have too much abundance of depth, to which in this case, I'm okay making this trade if you're not able to move like a Woody and an A.J. Brown for a potential better flex option, which I don't think you technically need one because Dowdle, Chase Brown, and Henderson are going to be great rest of the season, and J.J. Chase are great as your wide receivers. Gadsden's a great tight end when healthy. I think you can, you even have Harvey, brother. I'm okay making this trade. I don't have an issue with it. You can afford to do so based on the volume of depth you have on roster in such a, ridiculous league. Previous questions. Do I start after the trade? Oop, my apologies. Let me just go ahead, click on this real quick. So who do I start after the trade? So in this circumstance, we have the following. Okay, so injuries ruin my roster. Who do I start this week? So there's a couple things here. You're going to play Henderson for sure, okay? And then I also think that you're going to play Javonte for sure in this circumstance. So those are the 2 that I would like to play this week at running back. I'm playing Herbert at quarterback. London and Amon-Ra are my wide receivers. Depending on who's healthy, if Gadsden's healthy, I roll with him. Otherwise, I roll Ferguson at tight end. And then between the available options you have at the flex, I think it's very much so dependent on whether or not Bucky Irving is healthy. In the event in which Bucky Irving gets a full participation or practice by Friday, I play him in the flex. Otherwise, I'm going to just play Harvey there in the flex. Thank you. Appreciate it, my man. But now that you have CeeDee... Oh, brother, you have CeeDee Lamb too now. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me think about this. Okay. So in this circumstance, yeah, so it's London, Amon-Ra, and actually CeeDee Lamb is your flex. So then you play Henderson, and then you play Javonte. Bucky takes the week off, brother. That's just how this is going to work. You've got so many good players. Thanks, Fantasy Forecast. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Jackson sends in a question, says, should I trade Travion Henderson for DK Metcalf? No, Absolutely keep TreVeyon Henderson. If in fact TreVeyon Henderson continues to cook within this backfield, he is going to take the job and he's going to run away with it. Because quite frankly, he is the better of the more, he's the most talented running back in this backfield. The fact that they have decided to give Ramondre all those touches early on was an absolute shame. But now we are given and presented the opportunity for TreVeyon Henderson to take over. And he has one of the easiest strength of schedules at running back for the remainder of the season. Top 3 schedules. So keep him on roster. Thank you. Drew O says pick wide receiver 2 and a tight end. Okay. BTJ, Shakir, Tez, Theo, Otten, Loveland, Schultz, Ertz. Yeah, out of these available options, I would play Theo Johnson at tight end. And I would prefer to probably right now play Tez Johnson as my wide receiver. In the event in which you're playing in a full PPR, I could justify playing Shakir there. But otherwise in a half or standard, it's Theo Johnson and Tez. So depending on what you're scoring for Meta, it determines between those 2 wide receivers, but for sure going to play Theo Johnson because of Jameis Winston starting. Thank you. Bought a gun, sends it a question, says, I'm thin at running back. I've got Merritt, Singletary, and Monangai. Between those 3 options, the way in which I currently have them ranked would be Monangai number 1, Merritt 2, and Singletary 3. That's the way in which I would go about it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Abram sends it a question, says, I have Kittle and Gadsden. Yeah, so you're fine, brother. Your team is stacked across the board. There's just, it's ridiculous. It says Sutton or Pittman rest season. It's not close. It's Pittman, and it's not, genuinely not close. Pittman has an incredible fantasy playoff schedule in those 3 weeks. So expect for him to go off in that, spectrum of time. So yeah, getting this trade is an absolute W considering you have Kittle and Gadsden as well. Kevin, what's up, brother? Says, what's up, Drew? Questions in the chat. Would I be crazy to start Kansas City's defense over, what is this? Dallas. So Chargers, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Chicago. Well, Pittsburgh's defense should not be started. I don't see a reality in which they can bottle up Flacco, Chase Brown, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So that's just not even worth a play. Dallas's defense can't stop a soul. I don't care that they traded for a defensive tackle. It doesn't make a difference in my mind as of this moment. Until further notice, I'm keeping them on the let's not be really too overcommitted to that. That's like a break glass if necessary. Chicago is decent, but I don't love it. I'm playing the Chargers defense, man. I don't really trust the Jacksonville Jaguars at all. But do I think it's crazy to start Kansas City? No, I don't think it's crazy. Auntie Slayer says, Michael Wilson's value this week with Marvin Harrison out. I think he's got a great value. I'd say he's a top 40 wide receiver, especially considering the volume of opportunity that, of course, Marvin Harrison's been given in terms of 10 targets per game each of the last 2 weeks, and the fact that Zay Jones, the other alternative wide receiver on this offense, tore his Achilles on Sunday. I think Michael Wilson Jr., if you are in need of a wide receiver this week at a top 40 capacity, should be picked up, and not only picked up, but potentially started against the 49ers secondary, who are a top-tier matchup at wide receiver. I think they're allowing the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers since week 5. Mo Money, what's up? Trade TreVeyon Henderson for Bucky Irving. Full PPR team is below. Yes, immediately. I would. If you can afford to make the playoffs and you know that Bucky Irving is going to be your starting running back for the fantasy playoffs, I make this trade. I think Bucky Irving is the better prospect, but not only that, a far more relevant PPR back considering his contributions within the receiving game and the offense he's associated with. Yes, even though both these teams are winning and on a hot streak, I still prefer Bucky in this circumstance. Thank you. Rookie says, in a standard rest of season, rank these following players: Henderson, Marks, Harvey. Yeah, as of right now, I'm probably going to, okay, look, here's the thing. Harvey's a little bit of a difficult rank because I don't know what the status of Dobbins is. He hasn't been placed on IR. So until that, potentially takes place, Henderson's 1, Marks is 2, Harvey's 3. Thank you. Demont Smith sends in a question. Says, full PPR, Parker Washington or Ricky Pearsall if he plays. Even in the event in which Ricky Pearsall plays, he would have to demonstrate back-to-back days on Thursday and Friday of full participation of practice. Not only that, Purdy would have to start at quarterback. Otherwise, I'm playing Parker Washington. So there's a lot of contingencies for me to trust Ricky. Thank you. Abram says Sutton or Pittman. Okay, we already took care of that one. Thank you very much, Abram. I appreciate it. Lamosity, what's up, my man? Long time no see. Hope you're doing well, Lamosity. All right, Lamosity says, any recommended moves, half PPR, I've got Baker at quarterback, Bucky Irving, Genty, ETN, Tracy at running back. Okay, pretty solid team. JJ, JSN, Abuka, Wanda Robinson, Jennings, Myers at wide receiver. Says Kittle and Loveland at tight end. Wow, brother, you've got a really good team. Is there any suggestions I can theoretically make? Like in the terms of running back, I am very, very happy with Bucky, Genty, ETN rest of the season in a half PPR. JSN, JJ, Abuka, I don't think you can get better than that. So my only suggestion at the moment would be, If I'm going to go ahead and try to improve my roster, I would try to improve either quarterback or running back, to which I have an opportunity to take Etienne or Genty and maybe take one of those two players, pair them up with Wanda Robinson or Jawan Jennings, and ship them off for a better running back in exchange. Try to go buy low on a Barkley. Try to go buy low on a Derrick Henry. I know it's very difficult to do so. I know those are pipe dreams, but I'm just trying to give you an example as to the kind of value which you should try to get in return, considering the running back talent and the production they've had in terms of like 15-point players there. If the event in which you cannot improve upon them at a great rate to where you'll at least get back, players that are substantially better, then you hold and just keep rolling, because you've got an incredible roster that if you can't improve your quarterback, I mean, in this circumstance with Baker on roster, if I'm your team, like I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be like, who has Joe Burrow? I want him right now. Here's Jennings. Here's Wanda Robinson. Give me Joe Burrow right now. Thank you. And then just wait for him to come back. Thank you, Lamosity. Appreciate it. Daniel Barnes says, best quarterback to stream: Rodgers, Tua, Jacoby Brissett, Mac Jones, or Purdy. Yeah, it's one of these two. It's probably Mac Jones outright that's going to start this week, and he would be the preferred of the group. He's coming off of 3 back-to-back weeks of 2 touchdowns or more. He's been incredible, and he takes on Arizona's secondary that has a lot of injuries. Both of their starting corners were out last week. Could be once again. Rogo, what's up? Says, I meant Patterson and Myers. You know what the issue is? Who the fuck is Patterson? Am I crazy, guys? Like, are you talking about Jarrett Patterson? Is that who you're talking about? Because I just looked up Patterson. That's the only player that popped up. Patterson's worth nothing. So, yeah, you can drop him, no problem at all. The kicker Myers, or is that Jacoby Myers? Because the kicker Myers is spelled like that. Jacoby Myers is spelled differently. But either way. It says, why Jameis Winston over Tua and JJ? Because Jameis Winston's him. That's why. Jameis Winston has been one of the best fantasy quarterbacks. Maybe in real life, he's not the greatest quarterback, but in terms of fantasy purposes, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time for fantasy purposes. Last season, as a starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, and we know how bad that offense is, he was able to produce incredible fantasy weeks on a consecutive weekly basis. If you go back to last year, I mean, we're talking about 25, 23, 35, 17. I mean, again, incredible games against, subpar defenses. I think Jameis Winston could light it up. If you wanted to play Tua or JJ, you could, but I honestly feel really comfortable with the idea of Jameis or Tua here. Either of those two. I like the idea of Tua versus Washington's defense, but in Madrid, it becomes a little bit sketchy. I feel okay with Jameis in this circumstance, assuming the weather allows for it. Thank you. Brian Weiss says, in a full PPR, I need a quarterback. Cool. Says, I need a quarterback, tight end, and a flex between Flacco, McCarthy, Purdy as a free agent. Okay, so first and foremost, even if Purdy does play, I'd prefer to play Flacco this week. I don't mind the idea of having Purdy on roster rather than McCarthy, though, for rest of season purposes. Then we have Woody Marks, Vidal, Moore. Okay, so first and foremost, between Woody Marks and Vidal, I would prefer to play Woody Marks this week as my flex option over Addison or Moore and Vidal. So Woody Marks in a full PPR would take that flex spot. Then between Fannin and Loveland, and Taylor as a free agent, I would prefer to play Fannin as my tight end against the Baltimore Ravens. Earlier this year, against that secondary and that defense, again, I know he's a little bit questionable, but he came away with, in a full PPR, 9.8 fantasy points, 5 grabs on 48 yards. I think he's very capable of putting together another similar performance, just being a solid 10 points there for us. Awesome person says, hey, Andrew, preparing for the playoffs? Questions in the chat. Thank you, man. All right, let's see here. It says full PPR. I have this offer right now. The offer is Devontae Smith and Dobbs for Franklin, for Bijan, Jawan, JCM, and Algier. If yes, would you rather trade Dobbs? Okay, so first and foremost, looking at the trade as a whole, I don't want this deal. Let me look at the rest of your team. It says Knicks, I have Henry, Javonte, JSN, CeeDee Lamb, Pitts. Okay, looking at the team right now, I just don't love the trade. And I'll tell you why. I think the value combination of Javonte and Devontae Smith to your roster in specific is more valuable than specifically having Bijan. Because right now, Jawan Johnson does you no service, JCM does you no service, and Algier is not startable at this point, especially on your team. To which, when I look at the contributions of which Javonte and Devontae Smith are going to make as your starting RB and flex every week, I feel like that contribution alone is greater in a full PPR than what Bijan Robinson, in an isolated sense, would be able to provide. I understand that Juwan Johnson, as the future of the season, in comparison to Pitts, could be of more value, but if Kincaid ends up getting healthy, I'm okay probably just pairing those two. I think I hold what you have, genuinely. I don't mind the idea of trying to consolidate value in order to get Bijan, but I feel like what you're giving up is pretty expensive for what you're getting in return. You're pretty much sending away two 16-point players in a full PPR for one 21-point player. I feel like, again, the contribution of what you're getting from the duo is far greater than what you get in return. Thank you. Abram, what's up, my man? Abram, did you have a follow-up here, brother? Yeah, again, if you didn't see my original answer to this question, I prefer Pittman there. If you have another question, let me know, brother. I appreciate it. Gerardo says, hey, man, questions in the chat. Thank you, Gerardo. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Says, my man. Okay, let's see here. My team is Baker, Dak, Christian McCaffrey, Henry, Dowdle, and Bucky Irving. As RB, London, Tez, Pittman, J-Mo, and Pearsall wide receiver, Goddard at tight end. Would you trade Dowdle and Tez Johnson for CD Lamb? Yes, I would. Absolutely. I think this trade genuinely is just a matter of like, would I trade Dowdle for Lamb? Because you got Tez Johnson. I mean, genuinely, you got Dowdle and Tez Johnson for free off the waivers. But Tez Johnson's value is 100% contingent on the health of a Chris Godwin and his availability, and Bucky Irving and the contributions he gets within the receiving game, to which he could buy 4 targets away from Tez Johnson. So as of right now, when I'm looking at this trade, I purely just see it as a 1-for-1. Dowdle for CeeDee Lamb. And I prefer to have CeeDee Lamb rest of the season when you have Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Bucky Irving at RB. This is a trade which you have to smash accept. Take Lamb. Run to the hills. Thank you. Drewski15 says, what's up, my man? Questions in the chat. Thank you. Okay, let's see what you have here, brother. So then a 12-team league, full PPR. Pick one for the flex. Gadsden, Sutton, Pearsall, Worthy, or Charbonnet. If Gadsden's healthy, he would be the start. In the event in which he is not healthy and he's not playing this week, then it becomes a couple factors here. I'm not interested in playing Worthy, and I'm very much so hesitant on playing Pearsall unless, again, he gets full participation in practice Friday and Pearsall is starting. So basically, with me not expecting that to be the case, I'm assuming Gadsden, if he's injured, Pearsall's not going to be the greatest play, and Worthy's not worth a start. It's between Sutton and Charbonnet, to which at that point, genuinely, I end up playing Sutton. But let's hope that Gadsden's available. Thank you. Michael Delatore, thank you very much, Michael. SR20 Mar, what's up? Okay, we have a couple questions here. It says, in a full PPR flex situation, would I start Tez Johnson, Parker Washington, Tedderroll McMillan, or Ricky Pearsall? As of this week in a full PPR scoring format, I would feel probably a little bit more comfortable rolling with Parker Washington or Tez Johnson over the alternatives, Tedderoa and or Ricky Pearsall. So it's one of those two. I think there's a couple factors that need to be taken into account. First and foremost, is Brian Thomas Jr. available? Is Brenton Strange available? If both are going to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would play Tez Johnson. If, in fact, Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving are back, I think that diminishes the overall workload opportunity of a Tez Johnson. So once those players become active and healthy, or maybe neither of the groups play, but in the event in which, let's say, for example, none of them are healthy, I'm probably leaning in the direction of Parker Washington in a full PPR scoring format. In the event in which we do have a simple situation to which one side is healthy, one's not, I guess that will determine which way you go because, of course, the target competition. Thank you. Michael Delatore sends out a question. Says, bro, AJ Brown was crashing out. Yeah, he was. He said scoring in Madden was the only positive thing right now for him. That's crazy, brother. Listen, hey, I don't even blame him. The talent he has is being absolutely wasted. He's legitimately one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Again, he is one of them. Whenever I have to rank him, like, okay, hold up. Earlier today, when I had to put him on this list at wide receiver 20, do you think I had fun putting him there? I hate that. I fucking despise the fact that I have to put him at 20. But I have to, because I don't think that he's worth starting ahead of these alternative options, because unfortunately Jalen Hurts does not send the ball in his direction enough. There's just not a concerted effort to get him consistent target opportunity share, which unfortunately leads it to that. So I don't even blame him for crashing out. I think he needs to do it even more. Says, Okay, Michael Delatorre says, I need a nasty start for a flex in this week between Shaheed, JCM, Hollins, or Freiermuth. Genuinely, I think it's between Hollins and Freiermuth. I don't think Shaheed is the utmost startable play this week. Again, his overall usage limited. JCM, very much so a sketchy play outright because, again, Chris Rodriguez is expected to play this week. Hollins and Freiermuth are your two best options. Hollins, because of the absence of Kayshon Boutte, has been incredibly relevant as of late. 2 of his last 3 games, 6 or more receptions. The absence of Gardner Johnson and Michael Carter in the secondary of the Jets really does provide a lot of value. But Thursday games are just disgusting and gross, and I don't know if I want to hitch my wagon to a Thursday player, to which I feel like Freiermuth touchdown upside is maybe the play against Cincy, considering they can't stop a soul at the tight end position. I could also pick up Lockett, Dortch, or DeMercado. Honestly, if I was in your position, if Michael Wilson was available, I'd go there. Otherwise, I think Freiermuth or Hollins are your top plays in that order. Freiermuth 1, Hollins 2. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it, my man. Hope you're doing well. Cody, what's up? Says Troy Franklin, Christian Watson, or Pearsall in the flex half PPR. It's probably going to be Troy Franklin. The only reason I would ever play Pearsall is if, again, he gets a full participation of practice by Friday and Purdy's active. Watson, again, very much so a sketchy play. I know it's a great matchup, but ultimately, the target opportunity that Franklin gets, the touchdown upside he's able to kind of expose himself to, is far too valuable to pass up on. Oni says pick one between tight end Taylor, Jonnu Smith, Ingram, or Strange if he plays. Knox, Musgrave, Freiermuth. Freiermuth's the play. Even if Strange ends up playing, I think he might be limited. Freiermuth is 100% the play in this circumstance because the Bengals are horrible. Guys, the Bengals since week 5 are allowing 25 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. So that means that not only is Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, but also Darnell Washington may all be relevant within the game this week. That's an auto play there for Fryer. Thank you. Anthony sends in a question. Anthony says, Andrew, made some trades and waiver signings. I've got Jacobs. Okay, so Jacobs is my RB1 this week. I need an RB2 in a flex. Play Dowdle at Atlanta or Henderson versus the Jets, Warren versus Cincinnati. Tough decision, brother. I mean, sheesh, this is as tough as it gets. Now that we know that Ramondre Stevenson's 100% out for this upcoming Thursday's game, I think it gives a little bit more credence to playing Travion Henderson in this circumstance. But all 3 of your running backs are justifiable starts. All 4 of them, actually. To which it makes me sick to my stomach, to which I can't start all 4 in your league. If I can only play 2 of them, I mean, this is tough. In this circumstance, if I can only play 2 of them, I think I play Dowdle and Henderson. Now that I know that Ramondre is 100% out, Dowdle, Hendo. If you do not like Thursday games, that's fine. Play Dowdle and Warren. But for right now that I know for sure Ramondre's out, Henderson's going to play for me alongside a Dowdle against Atlanta. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. We took care of all of that. Good to go. Appreciate y'all. Okay, so we're going to probably be here for another 5 to 6 minutes. Then we're going to have to bounce. Again, I got to go ahead and prepare everything for tomorrow's quarterback and tight end rankings. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel, as you guys do on a daily basis via the live streams, via the, of course, videos that I post on the channel. Again, earlier today, dropped my top 36 wide receivers. So we'll go ahead and we'll complete a couple questions here. I'll hop into the live chat, answer a couple of those. Then we'll head out. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Isaac Smith sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, trade Tracy and Quentin Johnston for Waddle. Yes, immediately. If you can get Waddle, that would be an absolute steal. It says, Wandell or ETN rest of the season. I think it depends on what your necessity is on roster. Ultimately, in a full PPR scoring format, I think it could go either way based on the contributions in which Wandell Robinson has put forth in a full PPR format comparatively. So I think there is a discussion to be made between the 2 of them, especially with the upcoming schedule. But for now, this question, Tracy and Quentin Johnston for Waddle, I would take Waddle and I would run to the hills. Assuming, of course, you can afford the fact that Waddle does have an upcoming bye week. If you can, good to go. As for Wandell Robinson versus ETN, it depends. Again, do you need a running back or do you need a wide receiver for rest of season purposes? If this is the same team and I'm trading for Waddle, I'd rather have ETN just so I have a little bit of stability at both positions effectively. Thank you. Tony Copeland sends in a question. Tony, thank you very much. I hope you're doing well. Says, I'm 10-0 in a full PPR. Tony, how are you 10-0, brother? You may be the only team that I have seen all season long be 10-0 that has asked the question. Congratulations, brother. You are one of very few. Superflex format with Baker, Tua, Gabriel, Adams, McConkey, Pittman, Pierce, Douglas, Io Manor, Christian McCaffrey, HN. Now I see why you're 10-0. Charbonnet, Tootin, Hunt, Warren, Ertz, Njoku. Okay, it says start Hunt or over Charbonnet. Yes, I would. If Pacheco ends up missing this week, I would prefer to play Kareem Hunt. Next question, Douglas over Io Manor. I'm not interested in playing either of the two, genuinely. To which, if you wanted to technically play one of them, I would prefer to play Douglas because I do expect for Ridley to return this week. But in your circumstance here this week, I mean, Baker and Tua are your two starting quarterbacks. Adams and McConkey are your two starting wide receivers. Christian McCaffrey and Achane are your two starting running backs. You're playing probably in this circumstance. I honestly like Ertz against Miami, excuse me. So I'll take Zach Ertz there against Miami. And then of your available potential flexible options, Kareem Hunt and Charbonnet, if I can play both. If not, then I guess, yes, technically Douglas if you're playing in a 3 wide receiver format. Thank you, Tony. Otherwise, Michael Wilson available, maybe, potentially, please. We can go in that direction. Fasty, what's up? Says, happy birthday. I'm just here so I don't get fined. All right, thank you very much, Fasty. Sounds good, brother. Rogo says, Riley Patterson, Miami kicker. Got it. I was about to say, I was like, who is... Okay, listen. The reason why Riley Patterson doesn't come to mind when I see PTTRSN is because I don't even play in leagues with kickers, guys. I've stopped playing with leagues with kickers because it's just too much luck involved. Dropped kicker Myers, good? No, I'd much rather have Jason Myers. I don't know why you would drop Jason Myers. I believe Jason Myers is a better kicker right now. Yeah, Jason... Why would you drop Jason Myers, who just came off a 15-point fantasy week? And over the course of over the course of the season, he's the number 2 kicker in fantasy. Why would you drop him? It doesn't make any sense to me, Rogo. Johnny Kilroy sends in a question. Johnny, thank you very much. Says, my RBs are Christian McCaffrey, Jacobs, Warren, Judkins, and Hampton. Should I try to put Judkins and Hampton in a trade for a stronger RB? Or keep the running back depth? I think the depth is only necessary if you know that you're making the fantasy playoffs. I think in your position, I would be willing to make that trade. Considering I'm going to start McCaffrey and Jacobs probably every game rest of the season, I would like to pair these two up and try to go get a single consolidated running back to which I could start that player every week as my flex rather than having to choose. Now, you could end up choosing every week, and that's perfectly fine if the value which you're getting in return is not comparable to what you're giving, but I would be very much so happy to make that kind of a move for an upgraded running back to kind of go in that direction. Unless, again, you're playing in a double flex format, to which if you are, I keep it as is. Don't make any moves. Jorge Perez, what's up? Says, hi, Andrew. I'm in a full PPR triple wide receiver league. I have Sutton, Shaheed, DK, Hollins, Pearsall. Which 3 wide receivers should I start? I mean, as of right now, Hollins for sure should play tomorrow, probably alongside of Sutton. And then, again, I'm only ever playing Pearsall, assuming he gets a full participation of practice on Friday, and we have the potential of course, Purdy playing. Otherwise, at that point, Shaheed's my number 3. Okay, so it says someone dropped Slayton. Should I pick him up? Absolutely. I would drop Shamir DK in order to accomplish that. If so, do I drop Purdy, Brian Robinson Jr., or Benson? No, drop Shamir DK and go pick up Darius Slayton. And in the event in which he's healthy and his hamstring's not a problem, I would play him alongside of Hollins and Sutton. Thank you. Continuing on, we have Tim. Thank you very much, Tim. Says start 2, Sean Tucker, Amari DiMercato, and or Trey Tucker. So as of right now, Amari DiMercato and Trey Tucker are going to be my number 1 and 2 options, primarily because of the following. Sean Tucker, there is a likelihood, and the reason why I currently do have Bucky Irving as today's thumbnail is because, again, he did end up participating in the walkthrough today. So in the event in which Bucky Irving does end up returning this week, Sean Tucker's value is completely eliminated, to which DeMercado and Tucker are the 1-2 options. If Bucky Irving was not to play, I'd still, assuming it's a full PPR, go in the direction of DeMercado and Tucker. Only in a standard league would I play both these running backs. Thank you. Eric M says, PPR got offered Walker for Charbonnet. Take it? No, I'd probably rather have Charbonnet at this point, genuinely. Abram says, Broncos or Seattle defense, rest of season, half PPR. Let me look at their schedules, and I'll let you know right now. Give me one moment to go ahead and pull up their schedules next to one another, and then I can get a greater representation as to what I can anticipate. So as of right now, looking at weeks 11 through 17, Seattle or Broncos? Okay, so as of right now, Seattle has the Los Angeles Rams. They have Tennessee, Minnesota, Atlanta, which are incredible. When we look at the fantasy playoffs, they have Indianapolis, the LA Rams, and Carolina, which 2 of those 3 matchups to start with are very much so difficult. I'm not incredibly excited about that. But then we look at the Broncos' upcoming schedule here. They have a bye week, week 12. Then they have Washington. They should whoop their ass. Las Vegas, that's an absolute ass whooping. Then they have Green Bay and Jacksonville than Kansas City. Genuinely, I feel like I would much rather have Denver's defense, just looking at the schedule ahead, because I think it's a little bit more appropriate to roll Denver against Green Bay's struggling offense and Jacksonville's struggling offense rather than having to throw, Seattle into the potential buzzsaw of the Colts and the Rams in the beginning of the fantasy playoffs. Thank you. Alrighty, Abram. Let's go ahead and we'll close out today's live stream by answering a couple more questions via the live chat, and we'll close it out here. I appreciate y'all being so supportive. Thank you. Rob Zombie says, start Vidal, J-Mo, or Woody. I'm leaning towards Woody in this circumstance. Travis says, chat, pick up Blake Corum or Alec Io Manor. I'd prefer to pick up Corum just in case, because you're not going to really start Io Manor. You might as well have Blake Corum on roster just in case. Should I make this trade, Aaron Jones and RJ Harvey, for Jaylen Warren and Travion Henderson? Yes, I would rather have Warren and Henderson rest of the season, and it's not close. Dylan, make that trade. Maddie says, greetings, Anjuna. 3 wide receiver, 3 running back, 1 flex, 1 tight end format. Any changes? Chase, Pickens, Igbuka, Chase Brown, White, Rico. Tight end is Kittle. Flex is Henry. Or pick from bench of Quentin Johnston, Gadsden, full PPR. I mean, as of right now, I don't make any changes. I think that is the correct roster. Only in the event in which you have Bucky Irving starting this week, I'd move Henry over White at RB. And then I would probably end up playing Gadsden if he's healthy in the flex. Otherwise, Quentin Johnston. Thank you. Boy Blue, what's up? Says trade Judkins and Tedero McMillan for London. I'd be willing to make that trade. Yes, give me London rest of the season. That's great for me. Especially in a full PPR. That's great. Half PPR is perfectly fine still. Tyson says, in a 5-5 league, I just lost Marvin Harrison, but I got an offer to move him for Xavier Worthy. Other wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Nico Collins, Parker Washington, and Tez Johnson. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think Worthy is a startable player unless he scores touchdowns outright. And considering the lack of utilization as of late in terms of target opportunity, it feels like he is the number 4 option in this offense to score touchdowns. Behind Rashee Rice, behind the rushing capabilities of Patrick Mahomes and or Kareem Hunt, then it's Kelsey, then it's Marquise Hollywood Brown ahead of him in terms of red zone utilization. So ultimately, I don't love it. B-Stubbs, what's up? Says Jacoby Brissett or JJ McCarthy. Now that Marvin Harrison went down with his injury, I think you have to play McCarthy this week and hope for the best. Any defenses you wouldn't drop or stream every week? Any defenses I wouldn't drop? Look, as of right now, I'm of the opinion that Denver, Houston, and the Seattle Seahawks should probably be blindly started every week. But when you have the choice of Broncos or Seattle, then you can make this, separation there. Trade Charbonnet and Addison for Harvey. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think it depends on whether or not these players are even starting for you. Look, here's the thing. Harvey's potential rise in the future could be very much so meteoric, only in the event in which Dobbins is placed on the IR. If you think that's going to take place, then you make the trade. Otherwise, I probably hold because I don't know how long Dobbins may miss for, which is, again, a very much so contingent part on the value point there. Dak or Stafford this week at quarterback? Honestly, I'd prefer to play... You know what? The Raiders matchup is just so juicy. I think Dak Prescott is the appropriate play, despite the fact that Stafford has been on fire. You could continue to play the hot hand, which, again, in fantasy has been very much so productive year over year. But ultimately, Dak Prescott against Las Vegas is just too advantageous for me to pass up on the potential there, ultimately. All right, we're going to close out today by answering the question of JV817. Then we'll close it out. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. I'll be back tomorrow with quarterback and tight end rankings, and additionally, live streaming after the Thursday night game if you have any questions. Then, of course, on Friday with some hidden gems. Saturday live stream, Sunday live stream. Live stream this upcoming Sunday is going to be 4 hours, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. because there is a Madrid game between the Commanders and Dolphins. Don't forget that. Thank you. JV says, in a 1-quarterback league, Rodgers, Knicks, or Darnold? I would prefer out of those 3 quarterbacks, it's honestly between Rodgers and Darnold to me. Genuinely, I think that's kind of the separation at which I'm looking at to think which of those 2 directions do I want to go in. I don't love the idea of playing Bo Nix, especially the way that he's been playing lately. I think if I was in your position, I'm hoping for a shootout, and I end up rolling in the direction of, man, I feel like Rodgers could kill it. He could do it again. Ooh. I'm gonna play Sam Darnold. If it's my team, I'm going to go Darnold there. Darnold 1, Rodgers 2, Knicks 3. Next question says, I have Javonte Williams, I have Judkins, I have JSN Waddle, AJ Brown, McBride. My bench consisting of Shakir, Tedero McMillan, Kate Otten, Parker Washington. Any changes in a full PPR? No, I would keep it as is. You're good to go. Darnold's my play. Thank you, JV. All right, guys. That's going to cover for me today. Again, if you guys want my all-encompassing rankings every single Sunday morning for the main season. Actually, you know what? Let me check. Did my play on Betr end up hitting today? I know that the Knicks were getting blown out, so I was starting to get really afraid there. It hit. Okay. So again, 2 of the last 3 days, we've been pretty good via Betr. So the Monday play for the game in regards to the Monday night matchup between the Green Bay Packers and, of course, the Eagles, that ended up hitting. And then yesterday was a complete disaster, 0 for 3 on those 3 players for the NBA. But then today we came back, we exacted some revenge. We got, of course, I suggested earlier today, Jalen Brunson points and Jarrett Patterson double-double. Both of them hit 2.7x. Ended up being a great play. But again, if you guys want to potentially follow those plays, of course, get a free $10 when signing up today using code Andrew, and of course get my rankings every single Sunday morning by signing up today. Of course, you support the channel in doing so with the partnership here. But again, if you want those rankings, you got to make that first time deposit minimum of $10, then make that first time play within a real cash play to get those rankings from my email directly to yours. Be sure to check your spam folder. Otherwise, of course, you can check out the Patreon. There's always the availability of those Thursday and Sunday rankings while also being able to ask me individualized questions. I greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, again, check out Betr, get the free $10 by signing up today, and make sure you're eligible via the map. That's going to cover for me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're going to cue ahead the Double Helix. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.